Today on Stock Charts in Focus, we're talking process, taking a look at how to chart and analyze and monitor the major market averages using ChartList. I'm going to dig into my own personal toolkit, show you the charts and chart lists that I've set up in my own StockCharts account, the ones that I look at every week, every day to monitor the major market indexes, get a sense of what's happening at that high level and where the markets might be heading. Plus, we're going to show you how to create chart lists full of all of the components of those important indexes. We're talking things like the S&P 500, the S&P 400, the Dow Industrials. With stock charts, it's really easy to create lists with all of the individual components that make up those averages. So we got a lot to cover on today's show. Going to be a packed episode. Of course, you know what it is. It's all new. It's all here. It's Stock Charts in Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show, Stock Charts in Focus. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, our product focus show here on the channel where we dig into the site, dive into the tools, show you around the features, make sure that you're getting the most value out of stock charts that you possibly can. If you've been joining us every week for a while, if you're coming back to the show, welcome back. If you are brand new to the show, welcome, welcome. Remember that we do this every Friday. So if you're a Stock Charts user, whether you're new to the site, you're just using some of our free tools, or if you're a paid member, you've been a member for a long time, or you just joined us, in any case, this show is designed to help you get more value out of stock charts, show you around some of the things that you can do with the site, show you around some of the tools and the features that you can use to track and analyze the markets, your portfolio, all of that good stuff. And on a day like today, I actually get to reach into my own toolkit, show you how I personally use stock charts in my approach to the market, give you some ideas about how you can incorporate some of these concepts, some of these workflows into your own process. So lots to cover on today's show, but remember that we do this every Friday. You can always tune in on Fridays on Stock Charts TV or up on YouTube or on our on-demand platform, really wherever you want to get our content. My name is Grayson Roze. I am the Vice President of Operations here at Stock Charts. And like I said, today's going to be a fun one because I get to dig into my own account, show you around some of the lists that I use every single week, every single day, some of the charts that I look at to track and analyze the major market indexes. And then we're going to have some fun showing you how to create those chart lists that I mentioned in the opening, chart list full of all of the different individual components that make up the major averages. So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. So we are starting here on the members dashboard. Of course, the first page you see when you log into the site. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I like to call this the heart and soul of stock charts. There is a ton here, a lot that you can actually customize. So my dashboard might look a little bit different from yours. You can always come up to this little preferences icon, the little gears icon, open that up, and you've got some options there to actually customize what shows up on your dashboard. Now, in my case, I've set up the market overview in the middle. I've got the sector summary to the right of that. And then I have some of the market mover panels below that. So I've got the S&P 500, large cap index, the S&P 400, mid cap index. And then I have the ticker cloud, which is some of the most popular symbols on stock charts. So when I'm thinking about kind of market evaluation, monitoring what's happening in the markets, this is actually the first place I go. The dashboard is one of the best resources for that on stock charts, because at a quick glance, I can see what's happening across a lot of these major indexes. I can actually flip over to some bonds, to commodities, to the crypto market, all of that here in the market overview panel. And then I can drill down kind of one level into the sector summary and some of the individual stocks that are moving, big indexes like the S&P 500, the S&P 400. Of course, I have other options here as well. I can jump down to the small cap index, the S&P 600, or take a look at the NASDAQ, the NYSE, the Dow Jones, lots and lots of options there. So that's kind of the first stop for me. But what we're talking about today is how do you kind of drill down a little bit further? And of course, being stock charts, you got to bring up some charts. So how do you actually monitor some of these major indexes that you see up here, things like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the NYSE? How do we sort of drill into the charts and build a process for monitoring those indexes? So what I wanted to do with today's show was actually reach into, like I said, my own toolkit and show you how I do this. So I'm going to click down to my chart list. I got this little button right here. When I give that a click, I scroll down to my chart lists. Now, we've talked about my chart list organization on previous shows. We've done that in the past. We're not going to drill into all of that today, but the key that I do want to sort of talk through with you briefly is the structure to some of this. So up at the top, you'll see a whole bunch of lists called weekly that start with weekly, and then a whole bunch of lists that start with daily. That does indicate the chart type that's in there, the chart period of a lot of the things that are in there. But it actually, for me, represents sort of how I'm monitoring these lists. So these are all lists that I typically monitor on a weekly basis. They're part of my what I call my Sunday portfolio review. So I spend a lot of time on Sundays before the next week opens. I spend a lot of time digging into what's happened in the past week, going through a lot of the weekly charts, a lot of my kind of market evaluation things, getting a sense of what's happened in the markets so that we can look forward to what might happen in the next week and the weeks ahead. So I've got all of sort of my weekly evaluation list here that represent my weekly routines. And then I have my daily evaluation list that I'm actually looking at on a daily basis. So a lot of these are actually very similar. You see, I have a weekly market evaluation. I have a daily market evaluation. I've got all of the global equities on a weekly basis, the US equities on a weekly basis. I also have the same with those same global equities and US equities on a daily basis with these two lists here. But what I've got below that, which is what we're going to drill into today, are three lists that take some of the major indexes, some of the ones that I really want to keep a close eye on, and I drill down even further, even beyond the daily charts. So in this case, I've got my daily charts here with all of the sort of a bigger list of US equities. We're going to drill into all of this in a minute. But then below that, I've got a more specific list of US indexes on a 6-month time frame. And these are actually all 60-minute charts, so 1-hour charts. Then I've got another list that is that same group of indexes. You can see the number of charts in these lists are all the same, actually. I've got 8 indexes in each one of these. I've got the 6-month time frame. I've got those same indexes over a 3-month time frame. And then I've got those same indexes over a 45-day time frame. And the period of all these charts changes too. So it's not just the time frame. Like I mentioned, the 6-month charts, you'll see in just a sec, are all 1-hour charts or 60-minute charts. The 3-month charts are 30-minute charts, and the 45-day charts are all minute-to-minute charts, 1-minute charts. So what this structure allows me to do is, when I sort of combine all of this into one thing, I've got some longer-term views up here with this weekly list. Then I've got 2-year daily charts in my US equities sort of daily evaluation list. And then I'm drilling down even further into the 6-month time frame, the 3-month time frame, and the 45-day time frame. So let's dig into a couple of these lists, and I'll actually show you how this looks. We'll start up here with the weekly US equities list. And this one is a little bit different because it is a broader list. So I'll actually start on the summary view. You can see all of the indexes that I've put in here. So we start actually with what the average stock is doing, the arithmetic index. And we drill down from there into these different sort of groups of indexes. So we've got the total market. This is actually the Vanguard Total Index ETF. This is something you can actually buy. I personally like to benchmark a lot of things against VTI because it does represent the total market, but it's also an ETF that I could actually buy. So when I'm thinking about an individual stock, it makes a lot of sense to me to benchmark it against VTI. Again, because it's actually sort of a comparable index, something that I could actually buy. But anyways, I've got the total market index there. We drill into some of the major exchanges. We've got the NYSE and the NASDAQ. Then down into the NASDAQ 100. I've got the S&P indexes here. Starting with the mega caps, I've got the S&P 100, 500, 400, and 600, which goes mega, large, mid, and small caps. Then down even into a micro cap index. This is an iShares ETF, IWC, that actually tracks the micro cap index. From there, I've got some of the Dow groups, Dow Industrials, Dow Transports, Dow Utilities, and then some of the Russell indexes as well. And I finished up at the bottom with a very, very broad index, kind of similar to the total market index at the top. I finished up with the Wilshire 5000. That's the ticker symbol for that there, which is a very, very broad index. But anyway, so this is kind of the structure of the primary sort of U.S. equities, the big list of U.S. equities lists that I have. So when I actually drill into the charts, again, remember this is part of my weekly list. What we have here are longer term 10-year weekly charts. You can see here is that arithmetic index that I mentioned, which represents kind of the average stock. That's how we like to think of it. This is a 10-year weekly chart, so a long-term view. So every week I'm looking at this sort of very long-term view, again, a 10-year weekly chart for a lot of these indexes, to sort of start there, get a sense of what the bigger term picture is, with the bigger picture of some of these indexes. So from here, I can then start to drill down further into the daily charts and then into the intraday charts. So we're not going to spend a ton of time digging into each one of these charts, but just to get you a sense of kind of what these lists are there for, we're starting up at the top with that weekly list, all full of weekly charts for all of these different indexes. So for example, here is the NASDAQ. We've got a 10-year view of the NASDAQ. In this case, it is actually the index itself. This is not an ETF, so I am sort of benchmarking this in this relative strength line against the S&P Total Market Index. And in case you're wondering, we actually have all of these lists available in sort of a shareable form. So if you're watching this on YouTube, check the description down below. We will actually give you all of these lists. You can save them into your own account. Makes it really easy to actually kind of recreate this yourself. It's easy to create lists like this on StockCharts, but to make it even easier, we're going to give you access to all of these lists in kind of a shareable format. So if you want to take sort of my structure, bring it into your own account, start to modify from there, you'll actually be able to do that. Check out some of the links that we have in the description below. But anyways, we're going to go back up to the top here. And I'm going to go back to the dashboard because it makes it really easy to see some of these lists kind of all in one place. So what that first view represents is a broader list that's got a bigger list of US indexes in it. And that is all sort of for weekly evaluation. Again, they're all weekly charts, a bit of a longer term view. I duplicate that then. I take that exact same list of, in this case, 17 indexes. I duplicate that and I have a daily version of it. So when we click into this daily US equities list, you'll see that in the summary view, it looks exactly the same. Same orientation, same organization, same groupings and all of that. This is exactly the same list. But it looks a little bit different when I jump over to, for instance, 10 per page view. So when I jump over here, what you can see now is these charts look similar, but they're actually 2-year daily charts. So every week I'm starting with that kind of weekly evaluation, the longer term picture of these major indexes. And then I've got a daily version of that chart list where I'm digging into the daily charts and a little bit more of a narrow view. So again, a 2-year daily view. And I do the exact same thing. This is actually something that I look at every day, typically. I save that weekly list for that Sunday portfolio review that I mentioned, but I look at this daily list typically every day. Part of my kind of morning process, I'll just run through this list. So I've got my 2-year daily charts for all of those same averages, all those same indexes. Here's the NYSE, for example. I've got the 2-year daily view of that. And these are pretty basic charts, mostly trying to get a sense of trend and relative strength. So again, kind of how is this performing relative to the total market is kind of the question that I'm always trying to ask for these more specific indexes. I do have some annotations on a few of these. Occasionally I'll draw some annotations when I feel like it. You can actually do that by coming up to this actions menu, hitting annotate, and you can annotate these charts right from here. If we were using ACP too, we could do all of the same stuff over in ACP. Today we're kind of focused on the sharp charts world, but point is I can add annotations to these, and I'm just kind of scrolling through these different indexes. Again, all of them set up to be that 2-year daily view. So that's kind of the next stop down after we've done the weekly charts. I'll go back up to the top. We'll go again back to our dashboard. Makes it easy to see all of this stuff. So we've got our weekly list with all of those global equities, a bigger list, or our US equities list here, 17 indexes in there. I've duplicated that and I've got my daily list, which is exactly the same number of indexes, but all of them are daily charts. And from there, I want to drill down to sort of the next level down for some of these major indexes. I want to get a little bit more narrow. Now, I don't feel the need to do that for all 17 of these indexes that I'm tracking on sort of the 2-year daily view. I want to carve off a couple that are sort of more important that I really want to drill down into. So you can see that at the next level down, I've got my daily US indexes 6-month view. I've actually only got 8 in there. So it's a little bit more of a narrow group. Makes it a little easier to filter through these things. But I'm keeping an eye on the bigger list on the daily charts. And so when I narrow down to this kind of 6-month intraday view, I can do sort of a more specific or selective group of indexes. So let's jump into that. I'll show you exactly how that looks. And again, remember, we've got a 6-month version of this chart list. We've got a 3-month version of this chart list, and we've got a 45-day version of this chart list. So the concept here is to drill down sort of into a narrower and narrower view. Think about kind of starting with a telescope and drilling down to a microscope. That's actually how I typically like to think of it. So we'll jump into the daily US indexes 6-month view. Here are the indexes that I've put in here. These are sort of the ones that I really want to track closely on an intraday basis. The ones that I really want to kind of zero in on. So again, we've got that VTI index, the total market index, something that I use heavily in my process. I've got the NYSE and the NASDAQ, 2 of the major exchanges that we obviously want to track. The NASDAQ 100 below that, and then those same S&P indexes, starting with the mega caps, drilling down into the small caps as well. So we've got the S&P 100, 500, 400, and 600. So across the next 3 lists we're going to look at, it's the exact same list of ticker symbols. Same organization, same order, everything is the same. But the charts are going to be a little bit different because, again, we're kind of zeroing in further and further as we go. So I'll flip over here to the 10 per page view. Again, we're starting with that total market index. And so what we're looking at now is a 60-minute chart, a 1-hour chart over a 6-month time frame. This is a 6-month chart. And so this gives me a sense, I've gone from that daily view with 2 years worth of data. Now I'm sort of narrowing into 6 months worth of data. And I get a little bit of intraday action here too, because I'm not looking at daily charts. I'm actually looking at 60-minute charts. So each candle, each bar represents 60 minutes of trading activity. So this can give me sort of a narrower sense of what's been happening here across the total market in ETF here, VTI. So I can drill into this. I can scroll down here and I've got the same concept applied to the NYSE. I've got 60-minute charts here, or a 60-minute chart here over 6 months. So I can drill into sort of the next level down for the NYSE. I can drill into the next level down for the NASDAQ. You can see again, I've got some annotations of kind of the setup that I'm watching in the NASDAQ key levels. I can add these annotations and keep a close eye on those. And it's a little bit easier to do when you've got a narrower view like 6 months. When you've got that 2-year daily chart, everything gets a little bit more zoomed out. So this allows me to kind of keep a close eye on specific levels across some of these indexes that I want to track. So I've got the NASDAQ here. I've got the NASDAQ 100 next up. Drill into some of the levels that I'm watching closely on that. And then from there, we go into those S&P indexes. So I've got the mega caps index here, the S&P 100. I've got, of course, the big daddy S&P 500 right there. All the same concept, 60-minute chart, 6 months worth of data. I've got my annotations on there for the levels that I'm watching closely. I've got the S&P 400 below that. Has actually been a beautiful trender. We need to get up to new highs here in the S&P 400. I'm watching to see that, but has been a steady uptrend for the last 6 months or so. And then we've got the S&P 600 small caps below that. Pretty similar actually to the mid cap chart above. So anyways, again, as a concept, what I've got here is I've drilled down from that daily view into an intraday view, looking at 60-minute charts, 6 months worth of data. So let's go back up to the top and we'll flip down to one level below. So I've got those same indexes in a 3-month view now. Here we're looking at 30 minutes of data, or 30-minute charts, 3 months of data. So we can sort of zero in again, zoom in on these charts. Again, getting down to our kind of microscope level, we can zoom in on these charts again to a narrower 3-month view. See what's happening on a 3-month view. Again, same concept. We've got the NYSE here. We've got the NASDAQ here. We've got the NASDAQ 100. It's the same list of charts. So this allows me to kind of drill down further and further into these charts. And because I've taken the time to set these up as chart lists, I can come back to this every day. That's the beauty of chart lists. You've got all of these charts here evolving for you over time. It's all in the same place, makes it really easy to build a process around this kind of daily review. So again, we're digging into my toolkit, showing you part of my process. This is something that I do every day, drilling into these charts and watching how they are evolving over time. And taking that concept, going sort of from the high level, from the longer term view down into the intraday level is incredibly powerful. We can go from here. We're starting on we're on the 3-month level here. We can go down into sort of the final level, which is a 45-day view now. So we're getting down to that microscope level. We're looking at the very specific price action. These charts actually are a little bit different. So these are 1-minute charts. Each candle represents a single minute of trading. And this is over the last 45 days. So a pretty narrow view, about a month and a half. And because each candle represents 1 minute, it gives me a great sense of, kind of individual trades that are actually happening in the market. It's tough to hide if you're an institutional investor, for instance. Tough to hide a big buying campaign on the 1-minute chart because a lot of those big trades that you have to be placing to take a big position in a stock, those really make an impact, and it's clear on something like a 1-minute chart. So one of the things that's a little bit different on these that you'll notice is I've still got the same sort of color scheme. I've still got volume. I've still got that relative strength line up here. But I've added one indicator to the charts that have volume, which is accumulation distribution and on balance volume actually in the same panel. So again, I'm kind of looking for buying and selling campaigns. This set of indicators, these two indicators together, give me a sense of accumulation and distribution that might be taking place under the surface. So it's actually interesting to watch this chart right now. We've got price continuing to move higher, trending higher here on VTI, but we've actually got quite a lot of distribution I'm noticing on this chart. And that's something that I can see pretty clearly here on the 45-day 1-minute chart. So the fact that the accumulation distribution line is actually trending lower, that gives me a little bit of hesitation, says, wow, there's actually some selling going on here, even though the market is climbing up and up and up. So something to watch there. So one of the little differences that I have on these charts here in this list is that I've added that accumulation distribution line and the on-balance volume line behind it in gray to those charts that have volume once I get to that kind of 45-day level. But same concept. Anyways, I can scroll through here. I can see the NYSE. I can see the NASDAQ. I can see the NASDAQ 100. This one does have volume, so I've got that accumulation distribution line on there. And then down into those S&P indexes as well. So again, as a concept, I'm taking those same indexes and building lists around them for different time frames to kind of narrow in as part of my kind of market evaluation process. So hopefully you've got a sense of that. It's really easy to create these lists yourself. If you want to come up and create one of these lists, for instance, all you've got to do, let's say you wanted to do daily US indexes. We'll create a new chart list. I'll kind of show you how this works. You add a name for your new chart list, and then all you've got to do is come down. You can add either one symbol at a time, or you can actually jump over to this menu box and just type in the symbols that you want right here into this box and build out these market evaluation lists for yourself. Add all the indexes that you want to see. And then from there, you can, of course, apply chart styles to them and customize what those charts look like. Although, again, to make it easier on you, we have actually taken all of these lists that I'm showing you today, put them into a shareable format, and so you can actually add those to your own account. We're going to put those links down in the YouTube description below. So look for those. That'll make it easy to set up a similar process on your own. So that is our first stop in today's show, showing you around some of the lists that I have created in my own account. Again, taking that concept of the longer term view all the way down to that really narrow intraday view for some of these indexes is incredibly powerful. Now, the other benefit of creating some of these indexes lists to help you start to track some of these is that you can actually run scans on those lists. You can create alerts for the indexes on those lists. So we covered that in the last couple episodes of the show. We talked a lot about how to create, in actually last week's show, we talked a lot about how to create a chart list for your portfolio and then set alerts for that, for whatever technical criteria you want to bring in. The same applies to these index lists. So if you want to create a list full of all the major indexes, for instance, this daily US equities list, you could actually create that chart list and then set alerts on it or run scans on it to kind of keep an eye on what's happening across those major market averages. One of the other little tricks for monitoring that I love to use actually is turning on these daily and weekly reports. And when you create one of these lists, you can turn on the daily report or the weekly report, and we'll send you at the end of the day, at the close, we'll send you a report for everything in that list. So I actually get an email report for all of these indexes right to my phone, right to my laptop, right to my tablet. I get it everywhere that I have my email set up. But it makes it easy to track those. I love getting these daily and weekly reports. The weekly one will tell you the weekly move for everything in that list. So actually pretty nice to turn on both of them. You get sort of the daily view and then also the weekly view at the end of the week. So you can turn that on, experiment with that. Also great for your portfolio, also great for any of your watch lists. These daily and weekly reports, a big workflow boost for me, something I love to use. So anyways, we've covered sort of that first stop, talking through some of these lists. And what we're going to do next is actually talk to you about how to create lists for everything within these indexes. Because chances are, if you're tracking something like the S&P 100, you might want to also dig into the individual components within. So in our final couple of minutes of the show, we're going to show you how to do this. It's really easy. We're going to jump down here to our chart lists, and I'm actually going to show you the lists that I have created, and then we'll show you how to do this. So as I scroll down here, I got a ton of chart lists in my account, I know. But as we scroll down here, what you can see is that for a lot of those indexes that we were talking about, a lot of those major averages that we were taking a look at earlier, those have individual components within them, individual stocks that make up those indexes. So we actually might want to track the individual stocks within. And on Stock Charts, when you create a new chart list, we've made it really easy to fill that list out with these components. So you can see in my account, I've got a list for the Dow Industrials, everything in the Dow Industrials, everything in the Dow Transports, the Dow Utilities, all of the members of the NASDAQ 100, and then those same S&P indexes that I love to use, that many of us love to use, the S&P 100, mega caps, the 400, that's the mid cap index, the 500 large caps, and the 600, the small cap index. I've got lists for all of the members within each of those. And you can see that makes sense over here. We've got 100 in the NASDAQ 100, 100 in the S&P 100, we got 500 in the S&P 500, and so on. So to create these lists, it's really simple. We'll show you this actually from scratch. We'll scroll back up here, and we will create a new list, and I'm going to do S&P 500 members. Let's say you wanted to create a new list for everything in the S&P 500. We're going to create that new list. You could actually do this by running a scan if you did group equals S&P 500, but we've made it even easier when you create a new list. So we created that new list. Now we've got to come down to that add charts block that we were looking at before when we created our sort of index list. And instead of clicking one or clicking many, we're going to go over here to from group. Now, when you hit this from group tab, you've got a couple of different options. We've got lots and lots of predefined groups that you can choose from to fill out this list. When you open up this predefined groups menu, you notice that you got some of those major indexes right here, all the components of those major indexes. So if you want to build out lists for everything in the S&P 100 or all the stocks in the Dow Industrials, it's really easy. All you have to do is create a new chart list and then come over here to this from group option, select the group that you want and hit add. So in our case, we're going to select S&P 500. We're going to hit add charts. And there we go, 500 charts in this list. We've got them added right here. So this is everything in the S&P 500 in just a couple of clicks. We've got it all in one list. Again, now we have this in our account. We can start to monitor this. We can run scans on this, set alerts on this. Anything that we want to do, we can do that really easily. Now, if you wanted to create one of these for everything in the S&P 500 and have daily charts assigned to it, you could do that. And then you could actually do this process again and set a weekly chart style on it. So for instance, if I jump over to that list that I've created for the S&P 500 members, if I show you this here in 10 per page view, these are all sort of my default chart, which is a 2-year daily chart. So this list that I've created for everything in the S&P 500, this is entirely daily charts. But let's say that I wanted to have this list be weekly charts for everything in the S&P 500. Well, I've created that other list here. I've gone back to that S&P 500 members. Let's rename this. We'll do weekly. I'll hit save. And now if I have a chart style created in my account, which I do, for weekly charts, all I've got to do to set all of these as weekly charts, I hit this little button right here. That's going to select everything in the list. Now I scroll down to the bottom and I just select apply style to all. Come down here and I select my equity weekly, 5-year weekly chart style. Hit go. Takes a sec to load through all of those, but now when we look at this in 10 per page view, we've got everything in the S&P 500 on a weekly chart. You can see that right there, and this time frame now is over 5 years. So some of these tools you have available to you on the edit page actually makes it really, really easy to create these kinds of lists. Whether it's for the S&P 500, doing some of these different indexes, the components within, and then you can start to have some fun. You can build daily lists, weekly lists. You could do the same thing with intraday lists if you wanted to have everything in the S&P 500 on an intraday view. That apply style to all button actually makes it really, really easy to do this kind of thing. So we're going to scroll back down to the bottom, show you that one more time. Lots and lots of things in this list. When you select anything from a chart list, you can always come down to this row of buttons here. You've got that apply style to all button. Makes it really easy to build out some of these lists with specific styles that you want to see. So I know we covered a lot today. Hopefully a fun episode, just kind of walking through some of my process, some of the things that I do on stock charts every day. It's always fun to share with you a little bit of my toolkit and kind of how I use the site as an active investor, active trader in my own approach to the market. That's always fun. Like I mentioned a couple of times, we are going to share these lists with you. So look, if you're watching this on YouTube, look for this, the links down in the YouTube description. You can actually click on each of those. That'll pull up some of these chart lists that I've created, those index lists that we were looking at earlier. You can pull those up and there's actually a little button there. You can save it to your own account. So if this intrigues you, this concept of having those index lists, maybe a weekly, daily, and then down into the intraday views, you can actually duplicate that pretty easily by just going and looking for those links down in the description below. Makes it really easy to add those to your own account. I want to thank you again so much for joining me on today's episode of Stock Charts in Focus. Again, my name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at Stock Charts. Remember, we do this show every Friday, just really here to help you get more value out of stock charts, see something that you haven't seen before, think about something in a way that you haven't thought about it before. If we are giving you more value out of stock charts than you had before you started watching the show, then we're doing our job. That's our mission here every Friday on Stock Charts in Focus. So tune in next Friday for another edition of the show. Remember, a couple of ways to watch: stockcharts.com/TV. That's going to be the live player. You can watch live 3:30 p.m. Eastern time when the show airs, or up on YouTube. That's one of the best ways to watch this show, especially because we like to share links and things in the description below. But also stockchartstv.com, our new on-demand platform. You can also watch up there, as well as all of our other incredible content on Stock Charts TV. So lots of ways to tune in, lots of ways to watch. Thank you again for joining me, my friends. I will see you next week for another episode of Stock Charts in Focus. And until then, chart on, my friends.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.